Hi, this is Jack from EOS Authority, and I'm going to show you how to airdrop your own token onto the EOS blockchain. First of all, what is an airdrop? Well, one of the main features in EOS is the ability to create a cryptocurrency token which can be traded back and forth. These tokens are similar in concept to the ERC20 token in Ethereum. In fact, the native cryptocurrency on the mainnet is simply called EOS. An airdrop is when a new token or digital asset is proportionally issued to an existing community. In the most common case, a new token is created, a snapshot of all the accounts in the EOS blockchain is taken, and then the new tokens are issued to all of the accounts proportionally to their existing EOS account balance. Because everyone in EOS can be referenced with an account name, you can create a snapshot by recording everyone's account balance at a single point in time. Many public airdrops will choose to use a quote-unquote Genesis snapshot, which is a record of everyone's account balance in EOS at the launch of the chain. If you have an idea for a different or more complicated snapshot, for example on a certain date or time, then feel free to contact EOS Authority to create specific snapshots for you. After you obtain a snapshot, you then need to transfer the tokens to each account. Luckily, there is an EOS airdropping tool that can help us do this. It is also important to know that a lot of RAM will be needed to store the balances for every account your new token is being issued to. On the public EOS mainnet, RAM can be bought and sold with EOS. Accounts can buy and sell RAM whenever their application needs to free or use more memory. Once the receiving account transfers their tokens to another account, then the RAM used to store the original balance can be freed and sold back for EOS. At a high level, airdropping lets an application distribute its tokens across a wide range of pre-existing EOS members. This incentivizes end users to participate in the application since they will automatically share a small part of the application's value. So I'm over here on the EOS Jungle testnet where I can show you an airdrop that I did earlier for a token called Demo, D-E-M-O, on an account I made called My Token Account. Now, the one thing that's nice about the Jungle testnet is that they already imported all the accounts from the snapshot. So I have the Genesis snapshot, that is. So I have the Genesis snapshot opened over here. And all these accounts are already loaded into the EOS Jungle testnet, which makes it nice to test your own airdrops on. And you can actually see over here in the activity window, a lot of people are testing airdrops. So when we go over to the API here, I'll show you my token I made. So I'm using a get table rows, and over here I have calling my token account. And I'm going to look at the table stats for the demo currency token I created. So if I hit get, you can see that I created a maximum supply issued by my token account, and the current circulating supply is actually, if you added up all the tokens in the Genesis snapshot, you should get this number over here, which means that I have successfully airdropped all of my demo tokens at a 1-to-1 ratio to the Genesis snapshot EOS account balances. So another cool thing is we can go over here and we can change the call over here. We can change stat to accounts, and we can change the scope to an account name. So if we go over to the Genesis block here and we just grab any account, just go way down here, get this guy, and plug him in for our scope, and then hit get, we can see his account balance in the token that I airdropped demo. And I went at a 1-to-1 ratio, so this guy has 302. Come over here, you can also see 302. So I know this isn't the most beautiful interface in the world, but it does let you view the data, and it does have all the accounts from the Genesis snapshot already imported into it, and it's great for testing in a realistic environment. So now that you know what an airdrop is, let's see how we can perform one. First, we'll need to create an EOS account to host the token contract. Then we'll need to deploy the token contract onto that account. Third, we'll need to actually create the new token. And then finally, we can airdrop the token to a snapshot of accounts. Alright, so I'll be connecting up to the Jungle testnet for this airdrop. So that means I'll be connecting my Kleos to connect up to the Jungle testnet. Now normally when you run Kleos, it will look for a local node on your computer. But if you want to connect up to a node that is not on your computer, like the testnet or the mainnet, all you have to do is add in this dash URL flag, or -u for short. Now we're going to connect up to a testnet node, so I'll type in http dev.cryptolions.io at 38888. And now to make sure that we're getting the correct node, we can do get info, and it will bring back information about the blockchain that we're querying. So in our case, you can see here we have the chain ID, which I know from beforehand that this is the Jungle testnet. Now, if this was your local node, it would have a different chain ID, and if it was a mainnet, it would also have the mainnet chain ID. You can also see who is producing the head block, or who produced the head block. So instead of typing Kleos-u http dev cryptolions all the time, I just created a short alias script called testnet.sh, and you can see this just types out the above line up here for me. So I can go ahead testnet.sh.getinfo and get the same information. Alright, so the first thing that we want to do is create an account to host our token contract. So if we want to create an account, we're going to need a key pair for the active and owner permissions. So the first thing we'll do is we'll create a wallet to house this key pair. So we can go testnet.sh wallet, or is it create wallet? No, it's wallet. Create and -n, we'll call this one airdrop test. And it will spit out a password for you. So you want to copy this, and then we'll create a new document here. We'll call this one airdrop test, and we'll just open that one up, and then put in, we call it a wallet called airdrop test, and the password we'll just put in right here. Alright, now let's create some keys. So we'll do testnet create key, and we'll get 2 of those, and we'll copy and paste these in as well. So now we got to import these keys into the wallet. So we'll do wallet import -n. Make sure you give it the name here, airdrop test, and then each of the private keys. So we'll start off with this one, and then the second one. Now we'll need to make an account. And now the easiest way to create an account is go over to the Jungle testnet, which is jungle.cryptolions.io. Click create account. We'll call this one airdrop test 1. And then this is where you take those 2 keys that we just created and paste them in here. That one up. And this one. And then you can hit create, and when you get this green stuff, it means you're all set. So we can come back over here to the terminal and do testnet.sh get account, and we call this airdrop test 1, and you can see here's our new account that we made. Now also you can see if we want to get more EOS for testing purposes, you can come over to the faucet over here and just type in airdrop test 1, and it will give you EOS coins and jungle coins. So if you want to check out your account balance, you can just go over to account info and you can do airdrop test 1 and you can see all your account information. This is also what you get when you do get account airdrop test 1 over here with Kleos, the command line. So now we are ready to deploy an EOS token contract onto our new account. The EOSIO.token contract already comes packaged with the EOSIO software. Although you're free to modify and customize this contract as you wish, for demo purposes I will use the contract as is. This contract can be found inside the EOS contracts /EOSIO.token folder. In here you can see that we have a EOSIO.token ABI, CPP, and HPP. To compile this, use EOSIO CPP-O, then the name of the WAST file we want to compile to, so EOSIO.token.WAST, and then the name of the CPP file, which is EOSIO.token.CPP, and press enter. If everything goes well, you'll get no errors, and you'll be returned to the command line. Nice. Now if you do ls, you can see that we have a .wasm and a .wast. So now to deploy our contract onto our account, I'll go back to my home folder so I can use testnet.sh. Now I'll do set contract, the name of the account I want to host the contract on, which will be airdrop test 1, and then I'll go to the folder that contains the .wast. So this will be EOS, or for me it's EOS-v1/EOS/contracts/EOSIO.token, and then press enter. And if everything goes well, we'll be met with this confirmation message. We can also do get code and the name of the account that hosts the code, which is airdrop test 1, and will be returned with a code hash. If you're interested in how the token contract works, or any contract for that matter, it's a good place to look is at the ABI. If we go into the folder which contains the EOSIO.token contract and go to the ABI, we can then scroll down to see the actions that you can perform with this contract. The actions are create, issue, and transfer. Create will create a new token with a maximum supply and an issuer. Issue will then let the issuer release some of these tokens into the EOS blockchain, as long as they do not exceed the maximum supply. And transfer lets members of the EOS blockchain transfer this token back and forth between each other. So the first thing that we want to do is create a new token. To do so, we can use the command line to push an action to our contract. In our case, we want to push to airdrop test 1, and we'd like to push the action create. Now, the two parameters that we give here will be the issuer, which in our case will just be airdrop test 1, and then the actual token asset itself, which in our case, let's do 1 billion. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, dot 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll just go to 4 decimal places, and we'll call this one test. And now we have to give it the permissions of our account, airdrop test 1. And you can go ahead and see that this was pushed to the blockchain. We can also go check to see that this was created by doing get table, the name of our account, airdrop test 1, the name of our token, test, and stat. And we'll see that none of these tokens have been issued into the world or into the blockchain, but they do have a maximum supply of 1 billion, and here's the issuer that can issue these tokens. So now when we perform our airdrop, our issuer will then go ahead and issue these new tokens to each account in the snapshot. Now the supply that gets issued cannot exceed the maximum supply. Great. So now instead of going ahead and doing the command line, which would be to push an action to airdrop test 1 issue, and then we'd have to go ahead and put each account name here, and then we'd have to go put one by one how much they're going to get for our airdrop, and that would take forever. So luckily there's an automated script to do this, and if we go over to Google and type in EOS Essentials EOS drops, we can go ahead and download this to our computer. And I'll just download the zip. I'll create a new folder to put it here. So I'll do a new folder. I'll call this one EOS drops. I'll go to downloads, extract to, EOS drops, and extract here. Alright, now we can go ahead and CD into EOS drops. And you'll see we have an airdrop.js file here, we have a config.json, and a snapshot.csv. So the first thing you'll need to have is Node.js installed. So I have version 10.5. And then to set up, you got to run npm-i. And this will go ahead and install the dependencies. Now let's go ahead and check out this config.json file. So we can see here at the top we have our chain ID, and this is again the chain ID for the Jungle testnet. We have the token account, which in our case this is airdrop test 1. We also have the private key, so we can come over here to our text file and we'll take our private key and paste that in. We have the symbol, which in our case is TEST. I'll do a 1-to-1 ratio, and you can put a memo here if you want. I'll leave that blank. So now we can come over here and we can run node airdrop.js. And you'll see this airdrop will require that airdrop test 1 has an estimated minimum of 3931.859 kilobytes of RAM at the cost of 79.81 EOS. So you can see that RAM, we're going to need to have an estimated amount of 3,931 kilobytes of RAM, and it's going to cost us 80 EOS. So this is a setup to use the snapshot.csv, which is the Genesis snapshot. So you can see if I was to go ahead and airdrop down to the Genesis block, I would need to have 80 EOS worth of RAM. So a good explanation for RAM, if you go over to EOS RP for resourceplanner.io, this will show you how much RAM is currently costing on the mainnet, as well as how much you need to stake for network, as well as how much you need to stake for CPU. So you're probably thinking, well, what is RAM? So if we come down here, RAM is required to store data on the blockchain and must be purchased. You get a set number of bytes of storage based on the current RAM market price. The price automatically adjusts up and down with buying and selling action. When you release storage, you can sell RAM back to recover EOS at the current RAM market price. So basically, whenever you store something on the blockchain, you have to secure that storage with RAM, and RAM costs EOS. So the more you're storing onto a blockchain, the more RAM you need to hold that information, and thus you'll need to host more RAM with your account, and you can do so with buying the RAM with EOS. There's also network bandwidth. Network bandwidth is measured as your average consumption in bytes over the last 3 days. Net bandwidth is temporarily consumed every time you send an action or transaction, but decreases over time, returning to zero. The more tokens you stake for net bandwidth, the more you get to use. You can unstake at any time to reclaim your EOS tokens. So net bandwidth is basically the amount of network traffic you are delegated. CPU bandwidth is measured as your average consumption in microseconds over the last 3 days. CPU bandwidth is temporarily consumed when you send an action or transaction, but decreases over time, returning to zero. The longer your transaction runs, the more CPU bandwidth it will consume. You can unstake at any time to reclaim your EOS tokens. So CPU bandwidth is basically the amount of time that block producers can spend processing your transaction, or how much time you get to process transactions. So the more CPU bandwidth you have, the longer you can process on the network, so to speak. Alright, so if we want to go ahead and purchase some RAM, we can use the command line. So let's go ahead and take a look at our account. Let's do get account airdrop test 1. We can see here, this is how much RAM that we can use, we have available. This is how much RAM we're using now. This is how much net bandwidth we have staked, 100 EOS. This is how much CPU bandwidth we have staked, 100 EOS. And this is my balance in EOS. So you can see I have 100 net bandwidth staked now, and I have 100 CPU bandwidth staked. Over in CPU bandwidth over here, I have used 5.938 milliseconds. I still have available 3.8 seconds. Over net bandwidth, you can see the same thing. So in memory over here, I only have 189 kilobytes being used. So if I want to go ahead and buy some more, we can use the command line. We can use system buy RAM. And you'll see we need to have someone paying for the RAM, someone receiving the RAM, and then the amount of EOS to buy. So we can go ahead and do this again. We'll use airdrop test 1, and we'll send it to airdrop test 1. And then the amount of tokens, let's just go ahead and get 50. Or what did it say? Let's get 80. That's what it said. And then we can go ahead and get the account again. And you can see now I have much more RAM to use. So now before I run the airdrop test, I want to also show you how to get stake net bandwidth and CPU. So same deal here. We can use the command line, and we can use system delegate bandwidth. And the same thing, it will be from someone to someone, and you could stake net bandwidth and CPU bandwidth. So if we wanted to do this, we could go ahead and we'll use airdrop test 1, airdrop test 1, and then we'll do our net. Let's just stake one more. This will just add on one to our existing, and same thing. So now when we go ahead and get our account again, you can see that I just added on one more EOS for net bandwidth and one more EOS for CPU bandwidth. And you can use the same command but use undelegate bandwidth to do the opposite of what we just did. And when we go back to get the account, we can see we now unstaked that one EOS and we're back to where we started. Okay, and one last thing I want to point out is I'm in the EOS Drops Master, and it comes with a snapshot, which is the Genesis snapshot. So instead of airdropping to the Genesis snapshot, for this demonstration, I've just gone ahead and created a new snapshot where I just took the first 100 addresses from the Genesis block. So I'm going to use this for demonstration purposes because the actual Genesis snapshot can take quite a while to airdrop to, upwards of a couple hours. So for simplicity's sake, I will only be airdropping to these 100 addresses just for the demo. Alright, so now we're ready to run the airdrop.js again. And this time we'll see that we're only estimated to use 2.42 kilobytes of RAM at a cost of less than 1 EOS. And that is because we're only airdropping to 100 accounts this time. So we can go ahead and press enter. And they'll go ahead and send out each batch. And we're all set. So now if we come back, we can say, all right, let's pick one of these addresses and see if they got our airdrop. So let's just take this one. And we can go over to the Jungle testnet since this is already set up. We'll put in v1 chain get table rows here. On the right, we'll go ahead and we'll put in scope. And the scope will be the account name. So let's use the one that we just copied. The code, our code that we deployed to is airdrop test1. Table will be accounts. And lastly, we have JSON true. So then we can go ahead and press get. And you can see that they have a 64.6468 test. And if we were to go in and look at the snapshot, and find their address in here, we will see that they also have 63.6460 test. So you can go ahead and grab any of these other ones that we took in the snapshot. This one should have 28137. Come back, plug them in. And there you go. So this is a nice way to go ahead and test out the airdrop and make sure that the accounts have gotten your airdropped token. The one last thing I want to mention is that it will require quite a bit of resources to do an airdrop onto the Genesis snapshot. You will want to make sure you have enough RAM, network bandwidth, and CPU bandwidth before performing the airdrop. You will not want to run out of RAM or resources in the middle of your airdrop. And that is how you do an airdrop on EOS. I like to recap by saying that an airdrop allows members of the EOS community to become part of a tokenized blockchain application by simply having an account present in the airdrop snapshot. Because the expenses to run an airdrop may be significant for a single developer, there may be other ways to distribute tokens in the future, such as having users claim them or temporarily borrowing the resources needed. Please contact EOS Authority for more information or to get assistance with your own airdrop. Thank you for watching.